When Papa asked that question, I felt the air leave my lungs. The words hung in the warm Austin evening like a storm cloud ready to burst. "So, did the money help you out?" he said, smiling like everything was normal. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. The table went quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioner. I blinked at him, confused, my mind racing to make sense of what he'd just said. "What money?" I asked slowly, carefully, as if the words themselves might shatter something fragile. Mama's hand trembled as she reached for her sweet tea. Her eyes darted toward Papa, then to my brother Marcus, who suddenly found his barbecue ribs very interesting. Something felt wrong. My heart started racing, but I tried to keep my voice calm and steady. Papa's smile faded like the sun dropping behind the Texas hills. "The $75,000 I sent you months ago," he said, looking genuinely puzzled. "Didn't your mama tell you?" I stared at him, not sure if I'd heard right. $75,000? My throat went dry. For a moment, I couldn't even speak. The ceiling fan rotated slowly above us, the only movement in a room that had suddenly become frozen in time. I looked at Mama, hoping she'd clear it up, explain the confusion, laugh it off as some kind of misunderstanding. But she just stared down at her napkin, silent as stone. That silence told me everything I needed to know. For months, I had been drowning. After losing my position as a software engineer at that tech startup in downtown Austin, I'd been working double shifts at a coffee shop, selling my old Honda, skipping meals just to pay rent on my tiny apartment near the university. And the whole time, Papa thought he had saved me. He thought the money had helped. I could feel something inside me break, like glass cracking under pressure. "Papa," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper, "I never got any money." He blinked in disbelief, his weathered face showing genuine shock. "That can't be right. I transferred it to your mama's account like we discussed. She said she'd send it to you that same day." The words hung in the air like smoke from a wildfire. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his expensive leather jacket creaking. Mama's face had gone pale, her carefully applied makeup suddenly looking like a mask. My chest burned as I remembered all the times I'd called her crying, asking for help, begging for anything. And she'd said, "We just don't have anything extra right now, sweetheart. Honey, you'll manage. You're strong." I felt sick to my stomach. Papa's expression changed. The warmth in his eyes turned cold as he looked at her, really looked at her, maybe for the first time in years. "Linda," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Where did that money go?" Mama's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her hand shook so badly she spilled her tea, the amber liquid spreading across the white tablecloth like a stain that couldn't be hidden. Marcus tried to laugh it off, his voice too loud in the quiet room. "Maybe there's some mistake, Papa," he said. But his voice cracked halfway through, betraying his nerves. Papa's tone hardened like steel. "Marcus, do you know anything about this?" Marcus froze. His eyes flicked toward Mama, silently begging her to say something, to protect him like she always had. That brief moment of eye contact was all it took. Papa leaned back in his chair, staring at both of them like he was seeing strangers instead of the people he'd built a life with. The family portraits on the wall seemed to mock us all, frozen smiles from happier times. I sat there, my stomach twisting into knots, realizing just how deep their lies ran. How long they'd been deceiving not just me, but Papa too. Mama finally spoke, her voice shaking like leaves in a storm. "It's not what you think, Robert. I was just trying to help Marcus's business. He needed it more at the time. He has responsibilities." The room went dead silent. Papa's face went red, his hands gripping the edge of the table until his knuckles turned white. "You stole from your daughter," he said, his voice trembling with barely contained anger. I sat there in shock, staring at the people I used to call family. The people who were supposed to protect me, love me, support me through the hardest time of my life. That dinner started as a reunion, a chance to reconnect after months of distance. It ended with the truth none of us were ready to face. And as I sat there, tears threatening to fall, I realized that sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones who are supposed to love you unconditionally. The foundation of everything I'd believed about my family cracked wide open that night, and nothing would ever be the same again. If you're enjoying this story, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next episode. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever discovered a family secret that changed everything? Let us know. After I lost my job at the tech startup, everything in my life started to fall apart like a house of cards in a strong wind. I had worked as a software engineer at that company for almost 5 years. I'd moved to Austin specifically for that position, excited about the booming tech scene and the promise of a bright future. But one morning in late February, I walked into the sleek downtown office and was told the company was cutting costs. Investors had pulled out. The startup dream was over. I packed up my desk, smiled through tears at my coworkers, and told myself I'd find something soon. But soon never came. Months passed, and the bills didn't stop. They never do. I tried to stay positive at first, the way people tell you to when your world is crumbling. I updated my resume, sent out dozens of applications to every tech company in Austin, and went to interviews that led nowhere. The market had shifted. Everyone wanted someone with the latest skills, the newest certifications, 5 years of experience in technologies that had only existed for 2. My savings disappeared faster than I expected. The cushion I'd built up over 5 years of careful planning vanished in 3 months of unemployment. I sold my Honda Civic just to keep my apartment and buy groceries. When that money ran out, I started taking random side jobs. Babysitting for neighbors. Delivering groceries through apps. Dog walking in the scorching Texas heat. Anything that paid even a little. I remember calling my parents one night in April, after another rejection email. It was late, and I was sitting on my apartment floor surrounded by unpaid bills, feeling like I was suffocating. "I'm really struggling," I told Mama, my voice breaking. "I don't know how much longer I can hold on." She'd sighed, that patient sigh she'd always used when she thought I was being dramatic. "We wish we could help, honey, but things are tight right now. Your papa's got those medical bills from his surgery, and you know how the market is. Everything's so expensive these days." She sounded so convincing that I didn't question it. I believed her. I always did. She was my mother. Why would she lie? Papa would sometimes call to check in, usually on Sunday afternoons. He'd ask if I was doing okay, offering advice about networking and persistence. "Keep trying, sweetheart," he'd say with that warm voice that had comforted me my whole life. "Things will get better. You're smart and talented. Someone will see that." His voice always carried a warmth that reminded me of how supportive he'd been throughout my childhood, through college, through every challenge I'd faced. That's why I never thought for a second that they might be hiding something. That there might be help available that was being kept from me. There were nights when I sat in the dark, wrapped in a blanket even though it was summer in Texas, eating instant ramen because I couldn't afford real meals. My landlord, Mr. Chen, threatened eviction twice. Both times, I barely managed to scrape together rent by borrowing money from friends I'd have to pay back eventually. My pride took a hit every single day. I'd gone from being a successful engineer with a promising career to someone who couldn't even afford toothpaste without calculating the cost. But I told myself it was temporary, that my family loved me, and that love was enough to get through anything. Sometimes I'd see posts from Marcus on social media. He'd always had struggles with his construction business, always talking about how hard it was to make ends meet. But somehow around March, things seemed to change for him. New work clothes. A brand new black Ford F-150. Posts about taking his wife Sarah and their kids to Florida for spring break. I'd scroll past those photos, feeling a mix of happiness for him and bitter jealousy. I assumed he was just lucky, or better at managing his money than I was. Maybe his business had finally taken off. Maybe he'd landed a big contract. Mama used to say things like, "Marcus has a family to take care of. You're single. You'll be fine. You're independent and strong." I tried to let those comments go, but they hurt. They implied that my struggle somehow mattered less because I didn't have children, as if my pain was less valid because I was alone. I didn't know that months earlier, Papa had sent $75,000 to Mama to give to me. He thought he was saving me from drowning. Meanwhile, I was counting coins to buy gas, crying alone in my apartment, thinking my parents had nothing to give. Looking back now, I can't believe how blind I was. Every moment of struggle, every night I went hungry, every time I walked instead of driving to save money, it all could have been avoided. But Mama let me suffer while pretending to care, while offering empty sympathy. I didn't know it then, but her silence wasn't ignorance. It wasn't helplessness. It was a choice. A deliberate decision to let me struggle while helping my brother instead. And that choice changed everything once the truth finally came out at that dinner table. The betrayal wasn't just about money. It was about being invisible, being deemed less worthy, being left to drown while a lifeline sat unused, redirected to someone else. Papa had always trusted Mama with everything, especially when it came to money. He wasn't the type to double-check transfers or ask for receipts. In their 30 years of marriage, he believed that partnership meant trust, complete and absolute. That trust was his mistake. When he sent the $75,000 in March, he thought it was going directly to me. He'd called Mama from his office and explained the situation. He'd told her it was to help me get back on my feet after losing my job, to give me breathing room to find the right position instead of taking whatever I could get out of desperation. He didn't mention it to me because he wanted it to be a surprise, something that would lift the weight off my shoulders without me having to ask. He wanted me to feel supported, not like a charity case. But instead of transferring the money to my account, Mama decided to handle it differently. She had always been protective of Marcus, my older brother. No matter what he did, no matter how many times he failed or made poor choices, she found a way to excuse it. When he dropped out of community college after 2 semesters. When he got into debt from bad business decisions and questionable partnerships. When his construction company teetered on the edge of bankruptcy. He just needs a little push, she'd say. He's trying his best. He has a family to think about. Papa used to argue that Marcus needed to stand on his own 2 feet, that constantly bailing him out wasn't helping him grow. But Mama never listened. To her, Marcus could do no wrong. He was her firstborn, her golden child, the one who'd given her grandchildren. When the money came in, she saw an opportunity she couldn't resist. According to what Marcus finally admitted later, Mama had called him the same day the transfer came through. She told him about it, sitting in her car in the Walmart parking lot so Papa wouldn't hear. "Your father sent this to help your sister," she'd said. "But I think you need it more. You have Sarah and the kids to think about. Your business is struggling. This could save everything you've built." Marcus didn't hesitate. He agreed immediately, promising he'd pay it back someday. Of course, that day never came. People who take money that isn't theirs rarely return it. Instead of using it to genuinely save his construction business through smart investments or paying down debt, Marcus spent it like it was free money that had fallen from the sky. He bought that new black Ford F-150, the fully loaded model with leather seats and the premium sound system. He took Sarah and the kids on a vacation to Panama City Beach, posting photos of them at fancy restaurants and beach resorts. He even bought new tools and equipment for his business, then used the company to justify more personal purchases. New boots. A leather jacket. That gold watch I'd noticed at dinner. Mama told everyone that Marcus had finally gotten his business on track, that he'd landed some big contracts and was turning things around. She smiled proudly whenever someone mentioned how well he was doing, how responsible he'd become. Meanwhile, I was on the other side of Austin, struggling to pay rent, completely unaware that the money meant for me had gone straight to him. That while I was choosing between electricity and groceries, my brother was living like he'd won the lottery. Mama never said a word about it. Not once. Whenever Papa asked how I was doing, she'd lie smoothly. "She's fine. The money helped a lot. She's getting back on her feet. You know how resilient she is." She made sure the story sounded believable, adding little details about how grateful I was, how I'd cried tears of relief. Papa never questioned her because why would he? She was his wife, his partner, the mother of his children. What hurts most isn't just that she took the money. It's that she watched me fall apart and didn't flinch. She saw my suffering as acceptable collateral damage in her mission to protect Marcus from his own failures. I'd call her crying, telling her I couldn't keep up with bills, that I was scared of losing my apartment. She'd respond with fake sympathy, her voice dripping with manufactured concern. "Oh honey, I know it's hard. Just be patient. Something will come through. You're so talented." All while knowing that my brother was driving around in a new truck bought with money that was supposed to save me from exactly what I was going through. It wasn't just a lie. It was a betrayal that ran deeper than money could measure. She chose one child over the other, not out of love, but out of favoritism so ingrained she didn't even question it anymore. She had always favored Marcus, but this time she crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. This wasn't about giving him an extra helping at dinner or letting him stay out later as a teenager. This was about my survival, my dignity, my future. When the truth came out at that dinner later, it wasn't just about the $75,000. It was about every lie that had built the illusion of a family that never really existed. Every time she'd chosen him over me. Every time she'd made me feel like I was asking for too much by simply asking for help. Mama didn't just steal from me. She destroyed the trust that held us together. And in doing so, she revealed that the family I thought I had was nothing more than a carefully maintained fiction. It had been months since I'd last had dinner with my parents. The distance between us had grown naturally after I lost my job. I didn't want them to see how rough things had become. Pride and shame kept me away from the house I'd grown up in. Then out of the blue, Papa called one Thursday evening in late September. His voice was warm and full of energy, more upbeat than I'd heard him in years. "Hey, sweetheart," he said. "How about Sunday dinner? I want us all together again. Feels like it's been too long." He said it was time for new beginnings, for reconnecting as a family. I didn't really know what that meant, but something in his voice made me say yes. I missed him. And despite everything, despite the struggle and the pain, I still wanted to believe my family could feel normal again. That Sunday, I arrived at their house in the suburbs a little early. The house looked the same as always. Neat, quiet, and full of old memories. The smell of roasted chicken filled the air, mixing with Mama's signature peach cobbler baking in the oven. Mama greeted me with a quick hug and that usual polite smile she gave when she wanted to hide something. But she looked more nervous than happy, though I couldn't figure out why. Her hands were cold, and she kept adjusting her necklace. Marcus and his wife Sarah showed up soon after. He walked in like he owned the place, laughing loudly and talking about his latest business ventures. He wore that gold watch and had a confidence that used to annoy me. I tried to ignore him, focusing on helping set the table. Papa seemed proud, nodding along to Marcus's stories about hard work paying off and new contracts coming through. There was something almost triumphant in his demeanor, like a father watching his children succeed. I sat across from Mama at the dining table. She kept pouring herself glass after glass of wine, laughing too hard at Marcus's jokes. There was something off about her. She looked restless, distracted, almost afraid of being quiet for too long. Every time Papa mentioned how happy he was that everyone was finally together, she would smile a little too wide and take another sip. Her leg bounced under the table. I could feel it through the floor. Dinner started normally enough. We passed dishes around: chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, fresh rolls. We made small talk about the weather, about the new shopping center going up on the highway, about Sarah's mother's health problems. I told them I was still looking for work in tech, but trying to stay hopeful. Papa nodded encouragingly and told me I'd find something soon, that the market always turned around eventually. Mama just mumbled, "You will, honey," barely making eye contact with me. The mood in the room felt strange. Papa was in high spirits. Marcus was bragging non-stop about expansion plans and new equipment. And Mama looked like she was holding her breath the entire time, waiting for something to happen. I couldn't tell what was wrong, but something deep inside me felt uneasy. It was the kind of tension you can't see but you can feel, sitting heavy in the air like humidity before a thunderstorm. I remember glancing at the clock on the wall, thinking how quickly I could leave after dessert without seeming rude. I had no idea that this dinner, this seemingly simple family meal, was about to change everything. I thought we were there to reconnect, to share a meal and maybe laugh a little, to rebuild bridges that had weakened during my months of struggle and isolation. But behind every smile at that table, there was a secret waiting to explode. Dinner had been going smoothly until that one question shattered everything like a rock through glass. We were almost done eating when Papa leaned toward me, smiling proudly like a man who'd done something wonderful. The room was filled with the comfortable sounds of a family meal, forks scraping plates, Marcus talking about his upcoming business trip to Houston, Sarah laughing at something. I was tired but content. For a brief second, it almost felt like family again, like the years before everything got complicated. Then Papa spoke. "So, did the money I sent help you get back on your feet?" The sound of his voice felt normal at first, casual even. But his words didn't make sense. They hung in the air like something foreign, something that didn't belong in our conversation. I stopped chewing and looked up, confusion washing over me. "What money?" I asked. My voice came out calm, but my heart started to beat faster, that instinctive response when something isn't right. The laughter died instantly. The comfortable family atmosphere evaporated like water on hot pavement. Marcus froze mid-bite. Mama's hand shook as she slowly set her wine glass down, some of it sloshing over the rim. The color drained from her face, and I watched it happen in real time, the blood leaving her cheeks, her skin taking on an ashen quality. Papa's smile faded, confusion flickering across his expression as he looked from me to her and back again. "The money," he said again, his tone softer now, like he thought I was joking or had forgotten. "The $75,000 I sent you through your mama. I figured it helped you settle your bills and get back on track. Find a good position instead of taking whatever came along." I blinked, trying to process what he'd just said. The number echoed in my head. $75,000? My stomach twisted. I felt dizzy, like the room had tilted slightly. The edges of my vision seemed to blur. "Papa," I said carefully, slowly, like I was defusing a bomb, "I never got any money." The silence that followed was unbearable. I could hear the ticking clock in the hallway, the hum of the refrigerator, the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Marcus shifted in his chair, the wood creaking. Mama's eyes stayed glued to the tablecloth, her jaw tight, her hands gripping her napkin like it was the only thing keeping her anchored to reality. Papa's brows furrowed, his voice sharpening. "Linda," he said slowly, deliberately, "you transferred it to her account, right?" Mama didn't answer. She just sat there, frozen, gripping the edge of the table like it might steady her if the world started spinning. Papa's tone hardened. "Linda." Finally, she looked up. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. I could see panic in her eyes, raw and desperate. Papa's face changed in a way I had never seen before. The man who'd always been patient, understanding, slow to anger, that man disappeared. In his place was someone I barely recognized. At first, he looked confused, like he was trying desperately to give Mama the benefit of the doubt, searching for an innocent explanation. But the longer she sat there in silence, avoiding his eyes, the more that confusion transformed into something else entirely. Anger. His voice dropped low, almost shaking with the effort of control. "Linda, tell me exactly what happened to that money." Mama forced a nervous smile that looked more like a grimace. "Robert, I think there's been some kind of mix-up," she said quickly, her words tumbling over each other. "Maybe the transfer didn't go through the right way. I'll check with the bank tomorrow. You know how technology can be." "Don't lie to me," Papa cut her off, his voice sharp as broken glass. "I'm not stupid." He pulled his phone from his pocket, his hands shaking as he scrolled through his banking app. I watched the glow of the screen reflecting in his glasses, saw his jaw clench tighter with each swipe. After a few seconds that felt like hours, He found what he was looking for and turned the phone toward her, the evidence undeniable. "Right there," he said, his voice full of disbelief and hurt. "I sent it to your account on March 12th. You told me you forwarded it to Alyssa that same day. You called me at work to confirm it." I leaned forward and saw it clearly. $75,000. My name in the notes section. Mama's account listed as the receiver. The date stamp. Everything. My stomach twisted into knots. The air felt heavy, pressing down on my chest. Mama's face went pale. She didn't even look at the screen, couldn't bring herself to face the evidence. "Robert, please," she whispered. "It's not what you think." But I could already see the truth written all over her face, in the set of her shoulders, in the way she wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. Marcus shifted in his seat, avoiding everyone's gaze. That gold watch on his wrist caught the light from the chandelier. For a second, I couldn't look away from it. My chest tightened. That watch, the one he'd bragged about getting as a reward for landing a big contract, suddenly looked different. It looked like proof. It looked like my money on his wrist. Papa noticed it too. His eyes narrowed with the recognition of something that should have been obvious all along. "That watch," he said, pointing at Marcus. "You bought that right around March, didn't you? And that truck. And that vacation I saw photos of on Facebook." Marcus froze. He opened his mouth, then shut it again, looking like a fish gasping for air. Mama finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Robert, please don't do this in front of everyone. Can't we discuss this privately?" "Then tell me the truth." Papa's voice was sharp now, cutting through her deflection. "Did you give her the money or not?" Mama stared down at her plate, her silence answering louder than words ever could. I sat there barely breathing. My mind flashed back through the months I'd spent struggling, working long hours at the coffee shop, selling my car, wondering why my parents didn't care enough to help. And the whole time, the money was right there, in my mother's hands. Or worse, in Marcus's. Papa slammed his hand on the table, making the glasses rattle, the sound sharp and violent in the quiet room. "You lied to me, Linda," he said quietly, his voice full of hurt that cut deeper than any shout. "You lied to both of us." No one spoke. The candles on the table flickered, casting shadows across faces that suddenly looked unfamiliar. I looked at Mama, then at Marcus, and for the first time, I realized I wasn't sitting with my family anymore. I was sitting with strangers who had betrayed me. Papa completely lost it then. The calm, patient man I had known my whole life was gone, replaced by someone whose pain and anger had finally found their voice. "All these years," he shouted, pointing at Mama. "I trusted you with everything. Every paycheck, every decision, every plan for our future. And this is what you've been doing behind my back." Mama tried to speak, but he didn't let her. "Don't," he barked. "I'm done listening to excuses." His voice carried years of frustration that he had never let out before, pain that had been building beneath the surface of their marriage. "You've been manipulating me, Linda. I see it now. I've been blind, but I see it clearly now. You've been favoring Marcus since the day they were born. You've always made excuses for him, always made Alyssa feel like she had to earn your love while he got it for free." The truth of those words hit me like a physical blow. Tears started falling down my face. Marcus jumped in then, his tone defensive. "Papa, stop talking to her like that. She was just trying to help." Papa turned to him, eyes blazing. "Help? She stole from your sister to bail you out. She turned you into a man who thinks lying is acceptable. You can leave too. Both of you." The room went completely silent. Marcus stared at him in disbelief. "You're kicking us out?" "Yes," Papa said firmly. "You've both crossed a line that can't be fixed tonight." Mama stood up, tears streaming down her face. "Robert, this is your family." "No," he said, his voice low but steady. "This was a lie pretending to be a family." After they left, after the door slammed and the house fell into terrible silence, Papa sank back into his chair. I could hear him whisper, "How could she do this?" A week later, there was a knock on my apartment door. When I opened it, Papa stood there, holding a small envelope. He looked tired, older somehow, but calmer. "I owed you this," he said quietly, handing me the envelope. Inside was a check for the full amount. "Papa, you didn't have to." "I did," he interrupted gently. "It was meant for you, not them. And I need to make it right." He told me he'd already filed for divorce. "It's over," he said softly. "I can't live in that house full of lies anymore." He'd also updated his will, making me the executor. "I trust you to do what's right," he said. "Papa, I don't care about money or papers," I whispered. "I just wanted you to believe me." "I do now," he said firmly. "And I'll spend the rest of my life proving it." Months passed. I used the money to buy a small but beautiful house, to finish certifications, to rebuild my career. Papa visited often. Our relationship became honest in ways it never had been before. Marcus and Mama stopped reaching out eventually. Word was that Marcus's business collapsed and Mama moved to Dallas after the divorce. I didn't feel sorry for them. Not out of hate, but because they'd built their lives on lies. And lies always crumble. My revenge wasn't loud or dramatic. It was simple. Living freely, peacefully, and honestly. When I walked into my home each night, I smiled. They had tried to steal my chance at happiness. But in the end, I won, not by fighting them, but by living the life they thought I'd never have. For the first time, I didn't feel like the forgotten child. I felt whole. And that was worth more than any amount of money could ever buy. Thank you so much for reading this story to the end. If it moved you, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that they're not alone in family struggles. What would you have done in this situation? Let us know in the comments below. Check out our other stories in the playlist, and remember, the truth always comes out eventually. See you in the next story.